Hello, hello. I am Ben Pick, and thank you for joining me in Running to Write, where I give questionable writing advice through running metaphors. And if you've been keeping track, I think that's the first time I've said my intro live without messing up in like 3 or 4 weeks. So hey, anyways, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Richard. I really appreciate you being in the channel. Cool Gamer. Hey, how's it going? Awesome of you all to join me on this Monday night. Now, whenever I have an idea, I do my best to jot it down. I feel that when that inspiration hits, I want to try and record everything that I'm feeling, every emotion that I have, because to try and rekindle that later usually feels like it's diluted. So I keep a pen and paper next to my bed because if I need to choose between getting a good night's sleep or forgetting the spark of idea and having to get up, go to another room, whatever, I'll usually choose the former, that is going to sleep and just hoping that I'll remember the idea 9 times out of 10. And that means I'll usually wake up feeling like I've forgotten something, which is kind of never what you want. And I go through life exhausted, so sleep is one of my most precious commodities and one which I severely lack, which means yeah, if I have an idea, I most likely will not record it at night unless I have a pen and paper, and I usually keep the lights off so I don't wake up. So I've gotten good at writing without being able to see what I'm writing. I don't like using my phone because typing on it will be error prone, and also the light kind of wakes me up again. So then it takes me a while to fall back to sleep or get close to falling asleep. Though I do use my phone to write an idea when I don't wanna mess it up by stumbling around with that pen and paper. So there's a lot of different things that I can use to get those ideas down when I am my most lucid, when I am getting ready for bed and just winding down and processing everything that's gone all day. So all that to say, tonight I'm expanding on a simple question asked by a friend of the channel. Would you do a video about your air gap computer? And yes. That's this thing right here, the air gap computer. I'll go into more details about what that means, but right now, I'm just going to say that I'm doing more than that. These are the tools I use to write. These work for me. And I've written in planes, trains, and automobiles. In fact, I've written on boats, on runs, though the term writing while on the run or running while writing or running to write is a little bit broad for that one. Really, anywhere my mind stumbles across an idea, I try and write it down as best as I can. How illegible is your Midnight Darkness handwriting? Well, to be fair, my normal handwriting, my wife has described it as a serial killer's. So my midnight handwriting is not worse than that. I can read it fine. It is the words on the page might not be the most coherent because again, it's late at night, and while I think I have a great idea that I want to write down, when I wake up the next morning and reread it, turns out that questionable advice, questionable ideas kind of go hand in hand, I guess. Anyways, my goal is to show you how to write anywhere and write comfortably and the pros and cons of each. So starting off with my bread and butter, this is my air gap computer. What that means is it is not connected to the internet. I keep it in airplane mode 24/7. This is wildly outdated. It has very little processing power. So if it connects to the internet, it will instantly get hacked. It can't download any updates because it doesn't have enough memory on it. So we completely need to overhaul it in order to safely browse the internet, or as safe as one can browse the internet. Anyways, yeah, this is one of my favorite things to use to write in, and it's more solid than a tablet. I've seen those surfaces with like the fold out keyboard, and that doesn't really work for me unless you're working on a flat surface. Is it Windows XP? I think it's Windows 8, but it's a really bad version of Windows 8 because it's when I first got this, it was Windows 8 and it's like the minimum standard for Windows 8. But since they put out more and more updates, it can't do anything with it. I tried to sort of have an external hard drive that's connected to it. It's a whole process. It doesn't really work out too well. Definitely not something that's repeatable. that I can repeat with each update is what I mean by that. Anyways, this is more solid than the Surface with the foldable keyboard. You can see I can type on it. I usually write with this in my lap when I'm in the car. So this has some actual substance to it. It's pretty thin, but it still has some heft. And if I'm tapping away at the keyboard, it remains sturdy and it doesn't give too much. So this is what I use. I just not this past weekend, but the weekend before, I was up with family, so it's 3-4 hour car ride. And as small as this is without the internet connection, it can hold a charge for easily 2 hours out of that. So I'll usually read, write, go back to reading, write some more, rinse and repeat. And like I said, I keep it in my lap and it stays functional for the entire car ride. And it is comfortable to type away on my lap when I can type away on it very easily while it's literally in my lap. I'm using it as a laptop, and yeah, that's how I get in a lot of great writing while I'm say in transit. So I keep it in airplane mode, like I said, and in theory that means that it doesn't connect. But from a security standpoint, there are things that airplane mode devices still do. This phone is particularly guilty of that, where they do still broadcast even when they're in airplane mode. For all intents and purposes, this is perfect for me for writing in the car, on a plane, really anywhere. In fact, on the couch, this is my main writing laptop, as opposed to the laptop I'm using for this, which is easily twice as heavy. And then there was the laptop I used in college, which I'll get down to later for the disadvantages, because that thing was a tank. I think it weighed easily 11, 12 pounds, and carrying around my back was pretty rough. But using it on my lap, typing in a car was a mess because it gets very hot. This laptop also gets very hot, so I don't really want to write in the car with it. Though I do use it for most of my editing when it's up on my regular desk. And as for the disadvantages, like I said, it's wildly outdated. If I push it too much, it will crash. I've gotten good at sensing when I need to shut down and save everything. The first indicator is usually the trackpad kind of goes, it starts failing. Then I immediately close my work, and because it's already sort of starting to fail, I press the close out button once and it'll close out multiple things because there's a significant delay. However, I don't want to use a more powerful laptop for this. This doesn't get hot in my lap. The laptop I use, my primary laptop would. And unfortunately, this is still an upgrade from the last laptop I had maybe a decade ago now. This is 6 years old, I think. So I'm probably overdue. But the one before it was even more lightweight, and it frequently didn't save gracefully when it ran out of power, which means that if I didn't save to an external hard drive, or if I didn't save on that computer, anything that I had done in between the time would be lost. This one, if it shuts down, it keeps a local backup that I can return to. It's able to get back to where I was without losing anything, whereas the old laptop didn't have that. And there were times where it felt like I was gambling with my work while writing in the car and squeezing every last minute to get the words on the pages. Sometimes I guessed right, sometimes I guessed wrong. And I would frequently lose a lot of the unsafe work because that battery life indicator was a lie. For the old laptop, this one's better. And most of that turned out to be guesswork. Fun times. Yeah, needless to say, I got an upgrade and I'm probably going to need a new one soon. So this is my favorite piece of writing toolage. Wildly outdated laptop that is thin, flimsy, weighs maybe 2 pounds, but it is sturdy enough to write on in planes, trains, and automobiles. And yeah, let's see here. Hack the Wi-Fi card out of it. That wouldn't be the worst idea. I have taken apart laptops before. I wouldn't necessarily want to do this. I do like in theory, being able to use Wi-Fi if I can connect safely. I don't know. Let's see here. Yep. Like laptop you can throw in is great. Still don't want to throw it around, but it does feel more sturdy than throwing, say, a Surface around or anything like that, or whatever that's the Surface is the one I keep going to because it's something I've seen that's been. I mean, years ago when I was looking at this, it was advertised as something that you could get a lot of word processing done on, but I found that it was way too flimsy to want to actually use it. Oh, your laptop is deliberately underpowered, so it only is really suitable for productivity writing work. Yeah. Like I said, this can handle some emulation. I have some Super Nintendo games on it, but primarily I use it just for word processing. Next up, because like I mentioned, this is an air gap tool and I don't have internet on it, I have, I don't know, a dozen of these encrypted thumb drives. These carry everything on it. They have all the Word documents. They have all my vlog scripts that I work on, a bunch of random ideas, and I keep everything encrypted. So that way, if I lose one of these, not the end of the world. They're cheap enough that I don't really care too much, and I keep them encrypted because if I lose one, then I don't even have to bother worrying about if anybody will get my writing material. I know it's overkill because if anybody does get my stories, they're not really getting a whole lot. They'll get ideas, they'll get a book that I might, a book that I will eventually publish, but that's really only has value to me, and it feels like an unnecessary precaution, but it's not. You know, I just like being overly cautious. Anyways, I have one thumb drive that I save on every day. I have one that I save on every that I update the work that I have on that laptop every week. And then I have one that I have every month. And then I have one that I update, when I go traveling. So I use that one when I'm traveling, and then I'll keep the most updated one at home. I'll take a traveling one with me. And that way, even if I lose everything, I still have a good enough starting point. Obviously, it would suck to lose a backup. If my laptop got stolen and I lost the most updated thumb drive, that would be disappointing. But I have enough of the backups so that way I don't lose everything. Or I only lose maybe a week's worth of work if I were, say, doing writing while on vacation. And hey, Justiva, thank you for joining us. And yeah, love a good tool chat. Nice. Well, tool chat you are just in time for. So I believe it was Mama Maggie Ward who had something like that happen where she lost all of her writing work. And I can't even imagine what that was like to lose a significant portion of her work. I had something similar happen, but to a much, much less degree. And let's see here. How serious are you about maintaining backups? Yeah, the processes are manual, and I do not automate any of this because they're all encrypted hard drives. I'll go through the full cycle of what I do, but yeah, when I finish writing on my laptop, the last thing I do before I shut down is update the daily one with all the work that I've just updated on it. And then whenever, once a week on a Sunday, I'll trade everything over from the most updated one to the weekly one. So that way now they're synced up. It's a very manual process to sync everything, though it's what I use, and I mean, it works for me. But anyways, when I was in college, a few laptops ago with like I said, the 12-pound tank, I had my laptop on for 5 days nonstop. It was final season, and I was studying, I was writing papers, I was doing everything, and my laptop was on for 5 days straight. I came back from one of my last finals, went out, came back late at night, and just wrote for hours and hours and hours, went to bed at 2. I easily put down 5 pages, and when I woke up, I had shut down my laptop, but when I turned it back on again, apparently laptops don't like being on for 5 days straight. So I had fried the hard drive, and I took it apart to try and figure out what I could retain from it. Almost nothing. There was a giant scratch down the hard drive itself, and it was unrecoverable. It really sucked. I mean, I was really lucky because I just handed in a 15-page paper, which I would not have been able to recreate. But it sucked because from a creative standpoint, that set me back. Like, I don't think I really got back into writing during college because of that. I mean, I lost 30 pages from my writing since I didn't have a good backup system. I had a CD-ROM, which, yeah, I had a CD-ROM, which I had everything saved on instead of these thumb drives because burning CDs was a lot easier back then. And that version that was on there was wildly outdated. Although, Richard, you will probably be happy because what I lost, I don't really remember much of it. I do remember it was a training montage and it somehow involved a tree. I think they were levitating or they were throwing around. Anyways, there was a really big description about the tree that I do remember. I really liked it. And then there was a big description about the training montage. And as you hate both of those within my stories, overly verbose descriptions that don't add anything to story and training montages, it is kind of a win from a story standpoint, but it does still suck. And it was a significant motivational blow because I lost those 30 pages that I, at the time, thought were really good. But looking back on it now, I realize they probably aren't. Yeah, it took a good year to get back into the swing of any writing. Obviously, I was in college, so studying kind of took the primary brunt of my time and focus. And yeah, fun times. I still actually have that CD somewhere in my attic, I think. I don't know which version of the story it is, but whatever's on there, it's more or less trash at this point because that version of the story was 450,000 words and large portions of that are unusable. So I like the current version of my Falling Through story. And now with these thumb drives, I then put them onto my main laptop, which I upload directly to Google Drive and later Readsy. I could use them to copy everything over into a Google Drive document, a Word document that I would then edit there. But I like working on my air gap laptop, so I don't actually use it. Although you can, I know, I think Richard, you're pretty big on using Google Drive, or at least the versions of your work that I've read were stored in Google Drive, and that's where I made all the comments on them. But I do use Readsy for editing, so I will go from the air gap laptop to the thumb drive to Readsy. And then when I get a professional editor in, I find that it's easier to just use my primary laptop. So I go and make all the edits within Readsy, and then I backload everything onto the air gap laptop if I need to. So I go writing phase is in my air gap laptop, transfer everything over for storage, put it into Readsy. When I get professional editor feedback, I edit directly in Readsy based on those Word documents. And I use LibreOffice, it's a free version of Microsoft. And yeah, I find that it has everything I need. I don't need all that fancy word processing abilities. All my formatting is done in Readsy, so I don't need to worry about that. And I also mentioned writing while running. So I sometimes take my phone out with me on a run. When I get a good idea, I do that because it tracks my metrics, but I don't care about that as much anymore. So I usually don't bring my phone with me as often, especially not in this heat. We're going through a heat wave and it's pretty miserable. When I get a great idea, though, it is a wonderful feeling to be able to write it down in my phone. Otherwise, I try and just retain three different ideas that I'll hold on to while going for the run. And then when I get back, I just jot them down as quickly as possible. That's very error prone because, again, I don't have that same, there's a delay between when I had that idea and when I'm writing it down, and a lot gets lost in that time. Which means that when I get that idea, I want to write it as fast as possible. So I open up Google Calendar, I turn on Google Voice, and I just start saying whatever that idea is. And there's a lot of ums and ahs and misspelled or misheard words from Google Drive. It's not the best when it goes talk to text, especially when I'm talking as fast as possible, especially when it's out in the heat. And there's a lot I need to filter out later, though in the moment that works for me. That lets me get back to my run as quickly as possible. So I get my idea down and then just take off from there. I've experimented with the dragon, but it didn't work out well for me. Rather, it's no better than setting up a Google Calendar event, and then that's the same result where I'm essentially using drag and then I'll copy something. I'll copy what it records later onto my laptop as I write. But I find that Google Events with the description of what I want to do, whether it's a specific conversation, a random idea to add to a chapter, a physical description, or just something on my run that I thought of and thought would be interesting to add to my stories, all that gets put in a Google Calendar event, either for that day or for a future day when I want to take the time to delve into that idea. And once I'm done with the idea, I delete once I put the idea either into a note for something future, whether it's a brainstorm for a future book or whether it's a direct quote that I'm going to add into my current chapter, then I delete that Google Calendar event. In fact, I wrote a lot of this script while I was waiting at an OWASP event last week. I was struck with a lot of these ideas on how I write. And so I created a Google Calendar event, just started speaking while I was in the car by myself. And a lot of the ideas here, a lot of the direct lines that I'm using now were all included in that description. Next day, I typed up those details into the full on draft and then deleted the Google event. Now, if I were better at Google Text or Google Text to Speech or using Dragon, I might have been able to do this to dictate while driving. However, that feels like an unnecessary distraction. DC drivers, we are some of the objectively worst in the country. And in fact, on that 40-minute drive from my house to our meetup, I passed I passed one full on collision on the other side of the road. There were already police there and everything. And then I passed a near miss, which, yeah, I watched a driver try and force his way into oncoming traffic and cross 4 lanes to turn left while some people were coming on the other side and going down there. Anyways, terrible drivers all around. Fun times. Now let me check out these questions. Ooh, hey, Mr. Vlandis, how's it going? Glad you could join in and drive. Maybe I'll drop back in when I'm home. Sure. Unfortunately, I'm almost done, but you can definitely catch the replay. I'm glad you could make it. Oh. Huh. So yeah, sorry, you're all discussing Dragon. I kind of gave up on it, so I don't have good ideas. It looks like Word has some interesting audio to transcription features, and those seem to be working for just Eve. Oh no, the speaking and punctuation slowed you down too much to make it faster than just audio and transcription. Okay, so yeah, your mileage will certainly vary when you're using different tools, depending on action, diction, how well you pronounce your words, how clearly you speak. And all that definitely slowed me down with Dragon. So I didn't really like using the tool. Also, I don't know. I just feel weird walking around while I'm walking my dog and dictating the story in my head. I'm much better at going for a walk, letting my mind wander, and then coming up with maybe an idea or two, which I'll then flesh out later. But to actually write while walking, it doesn't really work for me. Now, between my air gap laptop and my phone, I can write anywhere. The thumb drives let me store everything locally so I don't lose much in the event of catastrophic technology failure again, or if my laptop were stolen. I use Readsy and Google to keep everything in the cloud and give me further redundancy, though there is more of a delay between when I do all those backups. That's not all. I do everything, like I mentioned, old school. And in fact, I had an idea on a run about the magic system within my stories. So I held on to that while running. And when I got back to the store that we took off from, this was a Pacer store. So yay, running shoes and running gear. I used to run with them. I wrote down all those ideas. I grabbed a pen and paper and this is a marathon checklist. So some training stuff. I just started writing on the back and there's a lot of stuff here. So this is from at least 10 years ago because I haven't run with Pacer since I was living in Boston, and I've kept it for that long because even though I've copied all these notes elsewhere, I still like having this as a reminder. And what brilliant ideas have I kept for 2 separate moves? Let's see. Group is a test to determine if is right in idea. Deserves to stop A Day because Beast created. Well, not all my ideas are gold. Not all of them are coherent. Not all of them are useful. But on the other side, there's a little sketch of what would later become the gates for my aspects, which I used. And my story has considerably changed since I wrote this, but I still keep it along because there is useful pieces in here. As great as technology is, don't overlook the original word processor, that is pen and paper. How many of you are physical writers? I've seen videos of 1 or 2 of you who write everything in a journal and then transpose it onto your computer. I'm always curious. I think that's a little bit too much for me. I like jotting down ideas, maybe like I keep saying, a sentence, a dialogue, something. But I do almost all my that's just a stopgap solution. Almost all of my writing gets done on this. So those are the tools I use to write. We have this fantastic piece of technology, though it is not actually a good piece of technology. I like how I use it. I like writing in it. And this is how I've written 2 books, going on a 3rd. So let's see here. Notes from my phone has a phone to text feature. I have so many notes of story ideas. Yeah. Yep. The trick is, how often do you go through and either write them down or put them in a place where you will then edit them later? Oh, nice. Looks like we got a few more people joining in. So thank you. Oh, hey, Dreaming Truth author. Thank you, Felicia, for joining in. Cool to see you here. And yeah, you handwrote a story once, it doubles up the work. Yes, that is my biggest fear, is that in writing down on a journal, I also make plenty of mistakes. I also write myself into holes, have grammar messes all over the place. And that's why I like having the laptop there, because I can just delete what I don't need. I can I can kind of edit while I write, even though it does slow me down, even though you're not supposed to do that. It sometimes works. Let's see. So you journal by hand every day. Your hands can't write for that long at a time. That's fair. You have 1 work in progress that's being handwritten, 1 to 3 paragraphs at a time due to your limitations. Okay. So that's forward progress, and that's great. I cannot write that way. I think differently when I'm, say, writing in a journal versus when I'm writing on a computer. And that mental block definitely would hold me back for writing my story from a journal into a laptop then. So that's all I got for you all tonight. Thank you for coming in and for sharing how you write. I'm always curious how other people do it because, like I said, this is how I'm comfortable writing. But if I find a way that's better, that helps me be more efficient, that helps me get more words on the page, that's something worth trying. Now, I am Ben Pick, and thank you for joining me in Running to Write. If you enjoyed me expanding on a single phrase from the AuthorTube Writing Conference, let me know. I'm on Instagram and Twitter as Running to Write, and probably whatever new social media thing comes out. Stream, I think I have an account, but I don't really post on there. So let's see how long Twitter survives this most recent dumpster fire, and maybe I'll try something new. I'd never gotten to Mastodon, but I don't know. Also, don't forget to sign up for my Writing to Write monthly newsletter. We are coming up on the end of the month, and I will get out the next edition the 3rd of every month. So those are regular updates on my sort of musings, pitfalls, and lessons learned. And you get to get fun pictures of my dog as well as all of the outtakes from the pre-recorded videos. I'm not going to watch the live episodes and compile. Oh, yeah, I'll get to that in just a second, Richard. I'm not going to compile all of my mistakes in the live episodes, but I have them set up for the pre-recorded episodes, which means that at some point the outtakes will catch up to where I am. But for now, you get to enjoy me yelling at my laptop and swearing, which I don't do in the lives, but I do in the outtakes. Now, yes, Twitter is X right now. I don't know what that means. I saw that when I was posting this afternoon where they changed it to an X symbol. I don't know. A rebrand seems like something that they need to do, but at the same time, I don't personally care. So, you know, I don't know how to get Twitter out of the mess they're in. Smarter people than I am are certainly working on it, but I don't know what the future will entail. And with that, I will see you next time. Until then, write everywhere. Get a few minutes while the chicken's roasting for dinner. Or sorry, got a few minutes while the chicken's roasting for dinner. Then write, because my wife is upstairs making dinner. That's where the idea came from. Anyways, it's better than scrolling through TikTok videos. Yeah, that one sounded a lot better in my head. Anyways, thank you, everyone, and I will see you next week. Also, sorry, one last thing. On Sunday, August 6th at noon Eastern Time, I will be doing my 1-year anniversary for Falling Through. It will be 1 year old at that date. That's the day my debut novel came out. So I'll be having a party. There'll be games, there'll be prizes. I'm starting to come up with some really fun ideas, and I will be talking about the realm of Never Was, which is all my ideas that didn't make it in the final copy, all my mistakes that I recognized when I sent it out to a professional editor and they told me they were mistakes, and everything in between. So I hope to see you there Sunday, August 6th at noon Eastern Time. It's going to be a party, and take care, everyone. See you next Monday.